And we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, and welcome to the Jeet Kune Dialogues presents the comments section. This comment section number one is a response to a post that was done recently, which asked the question, if you believe Dan Inosanto has added to Jeet Kune, please enumerate exactly what. So as you're logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the dialogue. If you're catching the simulcast over on the YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the Jeet Kune dialogues in its many different forms. All right. So as I said, if the premise was, if you believe that Dan Inosanto has added to Jeet Kune, would you please tell me, if you can, make a list and tell me exactly what. And you guys really, if you're really my friends, here's what you got to do. When I come up with these crazy ideas that are like a 2 or 3 person job, you need to tell me to quit while I'm ahead. So I've spent the past 3 days, because of course you might not know this, I posted this thing in 2 or 3 different places, I think maybe 2 on Facebook. And so I think it was on my page that it had over 300 comments. And then over on the I Love Jeet Kune page, it had over 150 comments. So then I have the job of scrolling through all this stuff. And you guys know, you're on Facebook. You have to click see more sometimes in order to see everything. And then when you click see more on something, and then there are 93 replies to what that person said, I had the job of going through all of these on both posts in both pages, and then trying to make sense out of the whole thing. So I did come up with somewhat of a format, and hopefully you guys will be entertained with what I did. So one of the first categories, I guess you could say, that I want to take a look at was, I call this, I don't know if you can see it exactly. Let's see, what's the post? That's the one, right? So this is the one that I called the praise, right? And so this is people who said stuff like, Dan Inosanto has added his inspiration, his experience of age, and made it contagious, as did Bruce Lee. Another person said he added additional wisdom to Jeet Kune, and that what his critics tend to forget is that he was there, he, Inosanto, was there when Bruce Lee was alive, when Bruce Lee was formulating his Jeet Kune. So, people need to pay some attention to that. Another person said, I think the main thing that he added to Jeet Kune specifically is a teachable curriculum, which is an interesting thought, one that has progressions, yet still allows you to explore your own preferences. And that's actually a relatively deep comment, because it's like, I think I agree wholeheartedly. Dan Inosanto is a master of, he's a master at giving you stuff and giving you the freedom to follow it the way that he has presented it, or to organize it in your own way, right, according to your preferences. And I think that's probably not a thing that's found in a lot of martial art instructors, even in instructors who might be they might be teachers of a less traditional art, as is Jeet Kune. I think even though sometimes these guys have a fixed curriculum, and it's got to be done that way, and if it's not done that way, then you're not doing it correctly, and what have you. And I think that Dan Inosanto has mastered that art of detachment or detachedness. Not prescribing for his students exactly how it is that stuff has to be done. Somebody else said that one thing he has definitely added to Jeet Kune Do is the amount of people who are able to study it, and that's very well said. And in addition to that, somebody else said he's added at least two entire generations of devout practitioners. Um, Someone else in the praise section said he's added many years of passion, enthusiasm, and hard work, and many students. Someone else, one thing he has added is a lot more students and inspiring them with the joy of discovery of their own JKD. And then he put a little smile emoji on that. Two more. One said he's added to its popularity. Without him, JKD would not be known at all, which is interesting because that does tie into something that we'll get to a little bit later. And now this one is a praise, right? He's added a common thread. Now this is one that you have to think about. He's added a common thread between the arts. Kali hands, aka Pangamut, right? Penjak Silat, Muay Thai, but mostly a way of thought / concept in combat. See, so that's actually something that hits the nail on the head because it addresses, and we'll do these somewhat separately. It addresses the idea that that some people have, that because they have seen in Asano teaching something like Kali hands, right, like Pangamut, because they've seen in Asano teaching something like Pendrak Silat, because they've seen in Asano teaching something like Muay Thai, right, that he has added on. But what this individual said is that no, what he added was a common thread, right? Realizing how to say things. And I'm deliberately not using people's names in this stuff because even though they posted on Facebook, which is a public forum, I didn't get anybody's permission to use their name, so I'm obviously not doing that. But if you happen to be the person who you might recognize your own comment, and in any case, the thing's still up on Facebook. So if you hear me say something here, you can go back and check for yourself and trace who it was that said it. But that statement about the common thread, that's so important to understand. People will give Bruce Lee credit for saying a kick is just a kick and a punch is just a punch and whatever. But then when his student Dan Asano says, hey, look at how the people in Kali do it. Hey, look at how the people in Muay Thai do it. Hey, look at how the people in Pendrak Silat do it. See, there's a common thread. And then you go and you train it, right? If you happen to be somebody who is on the receiving end of all that instruction from Dan Asano, and then you go and you train it out of the JKD Baijong, out of JKD footwork, out of stuff like the 5 ways of attack, like the 5 methods of counter offense or whatever. You do what we call JKDize it, right? You are involved in the process of making a punch just a punch, making a kick just a kick, because it's no longer being identified as, oh, it comes from this, okay? Which is something else that we'll get into as well. All right. So so that was the first section, the praise section, and that was actually pretty easy to do because the praise section is the smallest section that I came up with. All right. A much more vivid section was that about the let's see if this is the right one. Nope, that's not it. It was now I can't even find my own notes here, right? But it's what I call the Kali add-on, right? Because there were a lot of people, right? So one person said, Guru Dan definitely added to JKD stick fighting, that's for sure. But I think he took Bruce's model and concept and expanded it so much more where there was no limitations or style or new concepts of fighting. So a lot of people were on the what do they call it? They were on the take of yes, he added Kali. Now some people, right? Some people got it a little bit wrong, so to speak, because what one person said, well, that Kali is one of the styles in the JKD system, right? Integrated just like Bruce Lee did when he took over 20 different styles and integrated them into the JKD system. So Dan Inosanto was just doing the same thing that Bruce Lee had done, which was integrating other styles, other arts into the JKD system. No, because that's not what happened. That's not at all how JKD was formulated. It's not an idea, even though I know that some venerable JKD people, some venerable JKD people in the past have been credited with saying that there are these 26 arts that make up Jeet Kune. Let me just fix my mic here a second, right? And no, that's not really how it worked. It's not that idea of, okay, I have these 26 arts and I'm going to take like 2 or 3 things from each of those arts. So now I'm going to end up with 52 or 78 techniques, and that's going to be the Jeet Kune system. That's not how it happened, right? Even though that idea that Inosanto was just following what Bruce Lee had done, it is somewhat the idea of investigation of other things. Yes, that's true for sure, but not the idea that there's 26 arts. And so Inosanto was just adding like the 27th art or what have you. And so in answer to that, actually, what was said is that people who argue that concepts people, whoever they are, right, just teach a bunch of arts and call it JKD, they don't acknowledge, and probably they just don't know due to willful ignorance, right, that there are quite a number of people who study at the Inosanto Academy, and I can verify this. You guys might know I was out there just last week, right? There are a number of people who study at the Inosanto Academy, and there are a number of people who are certified as instructors by Dan Inosanto that have nothing to do and don't want to be certified in JKD. And so they only practice FMA, Silat, and or Muay Thai, right? So if everything is being taught as JKD, why aren't these people called JKD? And it's true. See, because what I noticed, and I'm an old school, I've been with Inosanto for 40 years, and you guys might have noticed this. I hardly ever refer to him as Guru Dan or Guru Dan or whatever, because he is my JKD teacher. So he is my Sifu. So I know I'll be hard pressed for you to find a time where I did that. But there are people who came to him predominantly or even primarily for Filipino martial arts. And so to them, he is their guru. And that's why they might use that term, right? And so the hypothetical or the rhetorical question that was posed is, why isn't the Muay Thai community outraged that Muay Thai is taught as JKD? And that's because it isn't. Same thing with the FMA community. Nobody in the FMA community is outraged that Filipino martial art is being taught as Jeet Kune, because it isn't. Nobody in the Silat community either, right? So keeping on with the commentary on the Kali add-on. Someone said he added a load of Filipino stuff to it. Now, this is interesting, right? He added a load of Filipino stuff to it. Not sure if he tested it in full contact sparring to see if it actually worked. I'm going to use one name here today, and maybe by the time we're done, I might use a second or a third. But this is exactly what my good friend Tim Becker, I like to call him Tim Bashara, right? This is exactly what Tim was talking about when he said that there's people who don't know, and it might be willful ignorance, right? Or not actually being in the element. So when somebody says, oh, well, Dan Inosanto added a lot of Filipino stuff to it, but not sure if he tested it in full contact sparring. Here's what a lot of people might not be aware of. The Dog Brothers, a premier full contact stick fighting outfit, that was born out of the Inosanto Academy. That was born out of stuff that went on at the Inosanto Academy. So yes, was it tested in full contact? Yes. Why? Because in fact, if you look in the art and philosophy book, you'll see photographs of sparring sessions in armor, right? Weapon sparring sessions in full armor. So what was that? That was the application of something that Bruce Lee introduced into his training methodology, the use of protective gear and full contact sparring. So that was the Bruce Lee idea being applied to the Filipino Kali. So it's the application in one art of a Bruce Lee directive. So yeah, so for anybody who is not sure if it was tested, yeah, it was tested. You know, and this reminds me of something, because you've heard, well, I've heard Burt Richardson say it. You know, he'll say, yeah, you know, so Sifu Dan will teach you, he'll teach you all this stuff, like he'll teach you all these disarms and whatever, whatever. But then he always says, yeah, I would just hit him in the hand to try to get the disarm, which is what? That's the simple and direct and non-classical approach. So that's always being put in there. And I experienced that myself in the Kali class a week ago, because he had us doing the sombrata and was like, okay, what I want you to do is go 10 clicks of this. So that means we're going to do the 5 count sombrata. And then you know what he says? He says, and if you don't get it, just keep going, just hit, right? Why? Because still the idea of not being tied to the classical method, because you can say the sombrata, 5 count pattern, 3 count pattern, or whatever, is a fixed pattern. What does that famous sign say? All fixed patterns are incapable of flexibility or pliability. What is Dan Inosanto, 50 years after Bruce Lee passed away, at almost age 87? What is he saying and teaching in his Filipino martial arts class? Break away from the fixed pattern. And this is the thing. So this is the magic that a lot of people do not get to experience. I'm smiling about it because I was like, this is so cool. After 40 years, he's still applying JKD principles. But how is he doing it? Seamlessly, as I think, I'll use a second name, as I think Dave Hatch, I'll use a third name, as I think David Hatch or Kurt Conwell said, I'll use a fourth name about Rick Fay, right? I'm pretty sure I won't get myself in any trouble using those four names. But if I do, somebody please come up with the bail money. All right. Okay. All right. So another guy said he has certainly added the weapon side of it. Now that one I wasn't sure if that meant that he added to the weapon side of Jeet Kune Do, or if he just added Kali, right, to Jeet Kune Do. That one I wasn't sure. But somebody else did correct him and say, well, the Kali was added to the curriculum at the Inosanto Academy. I mean, well, even before the Inosanto. I mean, remember, it was called the Kali Academy after the backyard, right? So it was something that was on the schedule of classes. It's not something that was added to the teaching of Jeet Kune Do, not at all, right? So then continuing with the Kali add-on idea, if you see Bruce Lee with a pair of double stick, is this Jeet Kune Do or is it Bruce doing Kali? Is he not training authentic Jeet Kune Do? Is he no longer the founder? I'm paraphrasing here. Is he no longer the founder because he's holding double stick, which a lot of us know comes from the Filipino martial arts, right? You see? So the idea being expressed here is that Bruce Lee trained in other things. People know that, but nobody disputes him being the founder of Jeet Kune Do, even though they know he trained in other things, right? So if he trained in other things, all right, if he had an interest in other things, does that mean that his Jeet Kune Do is no longer valid or is no longer true? Nobody is saying that because Bruce Lee did nunchakus, for example, that his JKD is no longer valid. Nobody says when he trained with Jun Ri in Taekwondo that his JKD is not original. So if Bruce Lee can train in other arts and still formulate his own art of Jeet Kune Do, why is Dan Inosanto being held to a different standard? It's as simple as this. Dan Inosanto trains in other arts. Well, maybe it isn't that simple. It's simple if you're smart enough to understand. But if you're not smart enough to understand, and if you don't know what it is that you're seeing, and if you never find out, or if you never listen, or if you hear and you still refuse to accept, right? What you see Dan Inosanto doing on seminar is not the teaching of Jeet Kune Do. In very limited and probably in very specific areas. I know when we had him here for 17 years, from 1989 to 2006, he did a summer seminar for me. And there were times when we asked for specific Jeet Kune Do stuff to be covered. Well, I am one of his long distance students in his instructor program. So of course he's going to do it. But what I would know as one of his students is that what we're getting is an idea of the art, ideas that we are supposed to now take and delve into on a deeper basis. Jeet Kune Do, the process of Jeet Kune Do cannot be handed over to you on a silver platter at a seminar with 40, 50, 60, 70, 100 people at it. It doesn't work that way. But you can get an idea. You can get perhaps maybe even the essence of it. But then you got to go do the work yourself. Right? So it's as simple as that. Dan Inosanto trains JKD, but he's trained in other arts as well. And again, I said it's simple, but it's not that simple, because then we got to talk about the seminar effect. One other kind of outgrowth of the seminar thing was this, and the Kali add-on. My neighbors are going crazy. All right. Apparently, there was a period in the 90s and the early 2000s where in Europe, there were people who were passing stuff off as JKD, and it was only Filipino martial arts stuff on the DVDs or the tapes or the VHS tapes or whatever. And that's something that I've heard before. A lot of people complaining to me that in England, there are a lot of people who call Filipino martial arts JKD. Now, I can see how that can happen, because if you learn Filipino martial arts from the guy who is known as Bruce Lee's premier disciple, if you don't know how to differentiate, you might end up thinking, well, if Bruce Lee's premier disciple is teaching me Filipino martial arts, then Filipino martial arts must be part of Kali. And you should probably ask a question about that and get some verification, right? So that was the Kali add-on. Well, that's the Kali add-on insofar as I got my notes collated, right? So now we'll go on to the third section, and the third section is and this is a term of affection, the philosophers, right? And so it was said we should try to remember that JKD is not a style, it's not a fixed style. I would add, and I add the adjective fixed because that was something that I got out of a conversation with Daniel Lee, right? Using no fixed way as way, having no fixed limitation as limitation. So JKD is not a fixed style. It's not bound by anything but your physical abilities and your imagination. It's what Bruce Lee made for himself, his self-expression, his truth. And so now where I might differ is that everyone who is engaged in the practice of Jeet Kune Do is engaged in the practice or the development of his or her own self-expression. That idea of self-expression was only for Bruce Lee in Jeet Kune Do. That's not true. It's for everybody who is on the Jeet Kune Do path, right? Bruce Lee was the trailblazer. He's the one that's showing us how we all need to find our own truth. And again, that's something that's perhaps very difficult for some pig-headed people in the martial arts world or the JKD world to understand. The power of the individual, the power of individual expression. None of us are clones of each other. So we can all come from the same source, but because we are separate individuals, we are going to express ourselves in some ways quite differently, right? Someone else said, if the premise of Jeet Kune Do is true, can you add or subtract from it? Isn't that like trying to add or subtract from infinity? Now you see why I call this section the philosophers, right? And then David Hatch. So I'm going to, it's only 4 paragraphs. I'm going to read you David's, his whole comment, and I'm going to read it because he started out by saying, wow, what a great question. So I got the pat on the back. So of course, I'm going to read his whole, right? He says, I feel that Guru / Sifu Dan Inosanto has expanded the consciousness of JKD by way of his heartfelt intent to show us or guide us to find our own path with the exposure to many arts. This gives us the choice of how we can express JKD within the guidelines that Sigun Bruce Lee left us. I feel JKD is like water, not a solid object. Some people have trouble grasping what JKD is. If you try to grasp water with your hands, you just have wet hands. It is easy to grasp a single art, a solid object, like boxing or judo, etc. If you want to digest the water, you need to have a structured container, cup hands or any structured container to accumulate the water. Then you take it into your body, absorb it so your body can make use of it. Sifu Dan has been giving us different containers, martial arts, to help us collect the principles of JKD. It is up to us as to how and what way we will absorb and make it useful. He is truly the finger pointing to the moon. And that is an excellent answer, right? But that's because Dave Hatch is a thinker, right? Okay, so that's hard for some people to get because it requires that you do the work yourself. So Dan Inosanto cannot say, okay, here's JKD, I'm handing it to you. Certainly could not say, here's JKD, I'm handing it to you, just as Bruce Lee handed it to me, because that's not how it happened. Everybody, like I said just now, everybody in the JKD world, right? Well, truly in the JKD world, is on his or her own path. And that's what Dave's comment is beautifully describing, right? Someone else said that I don't think Inosanto himself added, even though he definitely pointed more to the Filipino arts. But he made a clear distinction between what Bruce was doing and what he was doing. I knew many close friends and training partners who trained at the Inosanto Academy, and he definitely had a only what Bruce did class, right? It was more like his students who perpetuated what I guess some people call accumulation versus simplification, right? And we'll get to that in a little bit. Somebody else said that, well, this should actually have been, I didn't have time to do another add-on section. So this ended up in the philosopher section, but That's okay, right? Said that when Bruce passed away, there was no Trap-In series, there was no Jab Cross series, and so on. They were put together when Inosano and possibly others started to do seminars to have something to teach. That's not 100% true. To dismiss it as simply so that they would have something to teach when they did seminars is not 100% correct, right? The idea was still there. Remember, so boxing and kickboxing were things that Bruce Lee had started to work on, started to develop. You know that in, I forget what page of the Tao Jeet Kune it is, but he does actually use the term shadow kickboxing, right? We know that the idea of boxing. So if after Bruce Lee passed away, you go, okay, well, he was interested in boxing. So what if I spend some time with boxers and see what it is that boxers do? Okay. So that'll give us something to work on to improve our punching skill, to improve our ability to punch in combination, which is something we know that Bruce Lee was interested in. So the idea that, oh, well, they only went to this stuff so they would have something to teach on seminar, that leads into down in the detractors section, where it's like, oh, well, one of the things that he added was a huge dose of commercialization, right? Yeah, I get it when people say that, because if you are on the outside, or if you happen to have a less than favorable, a not so favorable idea about what Dan Inosanto is about, yeah, then you could say it, yeah, there was a huge dose of commercialization. I would ask though, what is commercial? Is commercial when you accept money for teaching and training people? Because if it is, then anybody who would print business cards and hand them out, and printed on the business cards is a schedule of fees, then that person is also commercial. Now, if you want to deal in semantics and you want to get into nitty gritty of stuff, if we could ever get a hold of Yuri Nakamura and ask him how much did he pay for his private lessons in Jeet Kune, I'd be interested in finding out, because I know that my private lessons in Jeet Kune, I did not pay for them. Okay. I paid for classes at the Innocent. Well, actually, I at the Inosano Academy in the old days, I didn't even pay for classes there, because I was visiting. If I was there just, like in normal classes during the week, I don't even think it was so commercial back then that they even charged me for being there. So I walked in for free, right? Is it commercial when, well, I rent a warehouse, I got to pay rent? So am I commercial if I charge people in order to pay my rent? But anyhow, you see how simple an idea that is. So again, with this thing about putting stuff together, so there's no Paksao series or Lapsao series or what have you. If you on the pages of the Absorb is useful, the Art and Philosophy book, I was always intrigued when I read the paragraph that said that Bruce Lee took Paksao and Lapsao, and in putting them together, he came up with Trapping Hands. Now, I've never asked any of my seniors to clarify that for me. And I know you've seen it too. There is vintage Bruce Lee and Taki Kimura training stuff of like Pak Sao Lap Sao. So, but I have been told by my Jeet Kune Do seniors that Wing Chun people did not trap like that in the early days. Maybe they do now, but they didn't trap like that in the early days. So I'm intrigued, and one day I will get to the bottom of it. I'm intrigued by that statement in Inosano's book that Bruce Lee came up with the idea of trapping hands by combining Lap Sao and Pak Sao and Bong Sao or what have you, right? So again, it is partially true. You have to have material if you're going to teach on a seminar. Yes, you have to have you have to teach something. You can't be hired to run a seminar and go, okay, guys, I got absolutely nothing to show you. What's the point of that? So there has to be something, right? So boxing and kickboxing, if you have an idea and you extrapolate on these ideas and you come up with stuff, I think that it's not the worst thing in the world if in coming up with series this and series that, what you're giving people is possibilities, but with the understanding that they then have to go home and turn the possibilities into probabilities, work at turning the stuff into high percentage success technique, right? So yeah, okay, all right. Kurt Cornwell also gave a really good answer. So let me read his. I've always felt and assumed it was a given. No, Kurt, don't do that. Not in JKD, and certainly not if it's associated with Dan Inosano. Don't assume it was a given. That Inosano teaches martial art as opposed to just JKD. That might be a generational thing. It is, right? As an example, I've never heard of or seen him teach Silat and say something like, this isn't Silat, it's JKD. He teaches an entire spectrum of arts and methods to a spectrum of students. I like the fact that you use the word spectrum. And provides insights into the universality of them, encouraging us to explore the depths of our own. Sure, he'll teach JKD or Junfan Gung Fu along the way as it was taught to him, and show how seamlessly it can move into and out of other arts based upon the core principles that Bruce Lee gave him. He's basically offering a PhD level at those principles and showing where the rabbit holes are. It's brilliant, right? So again, this is somebody, knowing Kurt as I do, this is somebody who is very, very interested in doing his own work to see what he comes up with on his own, but not what's that word? Willy-nilly, is that the word? Right? But it's not just from anywhere. There's core principles. So it's directed personal study. It's not random at all. There's a reason why you engage in certain things in order to come out at the other end expressing oneself, right? And there was a reply to cursing that said that was a PhD level answer. It's safe to say that some just never got it, and that some may never get it, and some got hit in the head way too many times to dig into the philosophy. Still, others won't ever release their preconceptions and the rigidity of their thinking, because whatever JKD means to them is powerful, and it's now part of their identity, perhaps even part of their business. Some can't be comfortable with their own beliefs without imposing them on others. Ain't that the truth? Luckily, I think this debate will dissolve in the next decade. It's about the contribution of these brilliant minds that added so much good to our lives and perhaps helped us avoid a lot of the bad. I think this debate will dissolve in the next decade. We'll see. Right? We'll see. It's been what? It's been 3 decades this far, right? It's possible. Who knows? Hey, with AI on the rise, who knows what the heck could happen? And so then we were given an extensive breakdown of what training with Dan and Asano was like in let's call it the old days, right? So the Kali Academy. So the Kali Academy was open from 74, April of 74 to July of 84, I think it was. Because I was there. No, yes. Was I? Yeah, I think it was 84, right? Um, anyhow, okay, my history, my math isn't might not be correct on that. Anyhow, so what was said is that Sifudan taught the JKD curriculum exactly as it was taught to him by Bruce Lee. There was never any form of blend-in or add-in. In fact, he had a few briefcases with him full of original notes and handouts from which he directly taught. And he always gave us historical context for each lesson that we were learning. So now this is the part that was most significant for me. Pure Bruce Lee fighting method. So if you've read anything about what training under Bruce Lee was like, there was use of the different pieces of striking equipment. There was tool development, right? The striking tools, footwork. There was full contact drilling, full contact sparring. Um, at one point, there was Chisao. I know that that's a big debate now. At one point, there was work on trapping. If you don't think that there was work on trapping, check the pictures of opening day at the Los Angeles Chinatown School, because there's a picture of trapping going on opening day at the Los Angeles Chinatown School, right? Junfan boxing, Junfan kickboxing, Junfan throws or takedowns, right? Junfan Wing Chun. I don't know if those were legitimate names for, that there's such a thing as Junfan throws. I think that just refers to throwing methods that Bruce Lee himself had devised, and so there was material on that, and so that was being put together, right? There was always freedom of discussion, always open forum questioning and dialogue amongst the seniors. These classes were quite small, and the skill level was generally very high. See, that's what I alluded to earlier. Seminar, different. School, JKD class, quite small. Skill level, generally very high, because that's something over which you can exercise a ton of control. You can't do that for attendees at a seminar, some of whom you might only be seeing once a year, or you might only see once, because, a guy goes, oh, Bruce Lee's guy, Dan Asano, is coming to town. I'm going to go take that seminar. I was one of those guys. I went to LA determined to spend a week with him and a week with Francis Fong in Wing Chun. And that was going to be it. I thought, I was going to go back home to Barbados, and I was going to live the rest of my life having spent 2 weeks in LA with Bruce Lee's #1 guy. It didn't work out that way. Long story short, right? So when the Kali Academy closed, then the schools became commercial, and fighting was no longer a priority. The learning of art became the priority. So even in that different environment, there was still a clear distinction or a clear boundary between what was the Jeet Kune class and what were the other martial art classes. So even when people say, oh, well, there's a whole lot of commercialization now, the Jeet Kune aspect of Asano's teaching has never been commercialized, right? So let me see if I can get to the detractors. Okay, so it said he explored JKD concepts. He had a whole different thing going on, his own thing. I don't feel like he refined or distilled things technique wise. The JKD blend was something he added for sure. I don't use it because I feel like it's extra, but he certainly added it. So the JKD blend, we got to talk about that because I don't have I didn't take a screenshot of it, but the JKD blend is something that I date it back to like first usage of the term to 1995 or thereabouts. Now, here's the thing. I never heard it in a live setting. Okay. I only saw it or heard it in a video presentation that was being made, that was being filmed in Australia. Now, I don't know what the context of that video presentation was. Okay. It's quite possible that they were being done for commercial purposes, not Dan and Asano commercial purposes, right? But for commercial purposes of the videographers in Australia, because if I remember correctly, there is the Inasano JKD section, there is the Muay Thai section with Ajahn Chai, and then there's I think there's a section with Larry Hartsell as well. So put in two and two together, I would imagine that the three of them were in Australia on tour. And so the idea was, let's get material on video. Okay. So the term JKD blend was used, and it might have shown up also in a magazine article. That's the other thing I think of, right? In any case, it was never a thing where it's like, okay, what we teach now is the JKD blend. The idea, to the best of my understanding, this is the idea, and it wasn't even that, it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a serious thing. It's like, oh, Jeet Kune Do blend is different from Jeet Kune Do concepts, and Jeet Kune Do blend and Jeet Kune Do concepts are also different from Jeet Kune Do. That's not it. That's not it. You know how sometimes if you're a scientist, a true scientist, right? Even when you have one result, you're like, okay, well, we got that result through this experiment. All right, let's try some other stuff and see if we can come up with different results. And then we have stuff to compare and contrast, right? I was in arts. I was not in sciences, but I think that's somewhat how science works, experimentation. So when I watch the video of the Jeet Kune Do blend, here's what I see. Yes, there's the idea of kick entry. And in this instance, it happens to be a savate kick, right? And then there's like a punch thrown, and then there's like a trap, right? Off the punch. And then the result is like an arm lock or something, right? Something like that. So the JKD blend is, oh, look, here's this savate kick, this boxing punch, this Wing Chun trap, and this jujitsu or whatever arm lock. So that's the blend. The thing about it is, if you look at that and you go, oh, Dan Asano is teaching a new thing called Jeet Kune Do blend. Taking advantage of his association with Bruce Lee and not teaching Bruce Lee's stuff, because Bruce Lee didn't teach styles, right? So Asano is teaching this thing with 4 styles in it. That ain't even it, because he happened to use a savate kick. He could have used a kick from any kicking method that he happens to know. He didn't even have to name the art. But what Dan Asano likes to do, and those of you who know him well will back me up on this, what he likes to do is to give credit where credit is due. And if my um, chronology of it is correct, and even if it isn't, the point of it is this: at one period of time, there were people from the Savate world who were hanging out at the Innisano Academy. What I mean is there were people from France, right, of the Savate world who were hanging out at the Innisano Academy. But the Innisano Academy also had its own Box Française experts on staff as members, as associates, or what have you. And so it's like, oh, this kicking in Savate is really cool. So I'll show people how you can have a sequence that pulls from these arts. And so he goes ahead and names it so that people understand, oh, here's this art that does this, here's this art that does that. Didn't have to be Savate, boxing, um, whatever it is I said, Wing Chun, Jiu-Jitsu, or what have you. Because that arm lock, you find that arm lock in Filipino Kali. In fact, shoot, you probably find everything in that JKD blend in Filipino Kali. So what if he'd have just said, you know, here's a hook kick, right, from Kali. I mean, it could have been anything. He could have said, here's a hook kick, here's a straight lead, here's a paksao, here's an arm lock. And because that's all JKD terminology, nobody might, well, they probably still have a problem with him using the term JKD blend, right? But I guess it's a big deal because he named other art. What if he'd not done that? What if he said it's a JKD blend, but here's a kick, here's a punch, here's a trap, here's a lock? I guess then people would not argue. But physically, right, visually, it's this identical sequence. We just didn't name it. Well, now it's okay because you didn't apply any names to it. So you're not adding styles. You're just kicking, you're just punching, you're just trapping, you're just locking. Yeah. If you happen to spend 2 seconds saying, hey, this kick, you can find it in Savate, that does not deteriorate, that does not detract from what it is that you're doing. Okay. So that's the thing. That was the thing about the JKD blend. I should have pulled this one, but I didn't. So I really should have pulled it. Let me see if I can, give me a second. Let me see if I can find it, because one of the points that was made is that, and this was not on my page. This was over on the I Love Jeet Kune page, right? And it was a picture of the Innisano Academy logo, right? Those of you who've been around, you'll know what I'm talking about. But bear with me for a second. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can find it quickly and add it into the feed. Give me 1 second. While I look for this, you guys talk amongst yourselves in the comment section. I'm barely kidding. I know you already are. In fact, I'm going to stop talking in a little bit. And all right, so, okay, so here it is. Hang on 1 second. I'm going to get this to you in 2 minutes. I'll tell you one thing I hope happens within the next 10 years, that this podcasting thing becomes so big that I'm able to hire myself an assistant. Okay, so here we go. So this is the image that was put up. Okay. And wait, Let me move it around a little bit. Okay, so here's the image that was put up. And so this is pretty funny. The contention was that, in fact, this is actually what was said. At one point at the Inasano Academy, it was style of the month, or a new style was being added every month, right? Now, what's interesting is that this, I mean, who would look at this and go, okay, well, this is evidence that a bunch of styles were added to Jeet Kune Do, right? Who would look at this and think that? I mean, any smart person would go, okay, well, this looks to me like a logo for a school where there's a bunch of different stuff that goes on. Now, included in there, because this is, I guess this is a before litigation design. So the original Jeet Kune Do logo is in there. Anybody who is a member of, you don't even have to be a member of the Inasano Academy to understand this, right? You just look at that and you go, oh, well, that's the logo for the school. And then maybe if you were smart enough and you go and you look at the schedule of classes, right? Back then you might have seen, oh, there's a Penjak Silat class, there's a Savat class, there's a Wing Chun class, there's a shoot wrestling class, there's a Kali class, there's a Muay Thai class. Because that's what these things represent. This is representative of the arts that are taught at the Inasano Academy. After litigation about the use of the JKD symbol, that was replaced, and so it's an Inasano unique thing called the Intercepting Legacy, I think it is, the way the way of the Intercepting Legacy. Tim Becker will know better than I am, better than I do, right? But anyhow, there's no way that any intelligent person would look at this and go, oh yeah, this is evidence that that there are styles being added to Jeet Kune Do. That's ridiculous, right? So, but anyhow, I wanted to show you that, because this is what the detractors think. Again, we got to talk about seminars. So on seminars, people are shown a bunch of stuff, but they're being shown a bunch of stuff by Dan Inasano, Bruce Lee's #1 guy. At no point does he say, hey, what I'm showing you is Jeet Kune Do. No. I guess it's fair to say, but he didn't say that it's not. So if one person wants to believe that it is, and the other person wants to believe that it isn't, because it wasn't directly said, but it also was not, it also was not said, people are free to make their own assumptions. Yeah, they're free to make their own assumptions. They might be a little bit stupid to make that assumption, though. Right? They might be, which is why I've been wanting to say this for probably a couple of weeks now. There's a particular individual. Probably I don't have the comment screen up here. I will probably stop talking to the camera in a couple of minutes, because this has gone on long enough. But I'm pretty sure that this particular individual will be here making comments, and I'm still waiting for an answer from one question that I sent his way, and that was, did I hear it correctly that you have only just started your Jeet Kune Do journey? I'm yet to get an answer from that particular individual, but I'm pretty sure that's what he said. I've only just started out. So my question is this: what do you think is smarter if you've only just started out in Jeet Kune Do? Talking out more about what you've heard because you certainly have not experienced it. So all the stuff that you blabber about has to be coming from somewhere, from someone else, because it's not your direct experience. So is it smarter to blabber on? Or perhaps is it smarter to ask more questions? Give less opinions, ask more questions in order to become better informed. Or do you think is it no. I got one group of people telling me that this is it, and you know what? This is it. Because I heard it from this one group of people. And it could be a group of impressive people. Yes. Okay. But because they're impressive doesn't mean that they are necessarily correct. You could be really good at something and be really wrong about your beliefs in it. Doesn't stop you from being good at it. You see? So that's my suggestion. So I think I'm gonna let me just go through, let me scroll through a little bit and see if there was anything else that because I got to tell you, my notes on this ended up, I mean, I had to edit them down from 40 something pages in a document down to half that size, 20 pages. And so I only got to page 10 just now. Right. So I think I'm gonna stop talking to the camera now, and I'm gonna try to take a look. Give me 1 second, and see what's going on in the comment section right here. All right, Bucky Barreto said, "Who in the JKD world has fought for or is fighting for unconditional freedom?" Well, unconditional freedom. Bucky, I'll tell you, it's the people who come down on the side of keeping an open mind in Jeet Kune, even in Jeet Kune. If somebody's trying to tell you, no, it's like this. Bruce did all the work for us, right? So if Bruce didn't do it, it's not JKD. You don't need to add anything on. See, so their argument is already flawed because there is nothing that proves that anybody has added anything to Jeet Kune. So when they say those people over there are adding to Jeet Kune and they don't understand the concept of daily decrease or daily increase because they keep accumulating. So they're going the route of accumulation versus the route of simplicity. Those people are not fighting for unconditional freedom because they're trying to tell you that it can only be done this way. So they are avoiding Bruce Lee's own writings because Bruce Lee never wrote anything that said it is only this way, my way or the highway. He never wrote that. Okay. In my conversation on Wednesday night with Ryan Old, the author of this big but fantastic book. Okay. Ryan said, I just realized something with my camera. Why does this happen to me? Hang on a second. I gotta do something here. I just realized something. Okay. Hopefully none of you guys saw that. Right. You see now? Yeah. Okay. So those guys that are telling you it's got to be this way and not this other way, Bucky, are not. They're not on the side of unconditional freedom. Now, look, man, freedom is a dangerous thing because if you grant people too much freedom, what if there's an uprising against you and now you're not in charge anymore, right? I'm just saying. Anyhow, okay, so let's see. Well, wait, who got here first? Looks like Mick Tully beat Terry Valor. Ah, wow. All right. Again. That's pretty cool. Ah, I tell you, Terry, you're getting old, getting slow in your old age, right? Okay, Tim's here. Dave Hatch is here. Okay, good. I hope you guys approved of what I said about you. Um, so Miami local Scorch says Dan Insano facilitated the evolution Jeet Kune Do as we know it today. He was already knowledgeable before he met Bruce Lee, and iron sharpens iron. Very good, Scorch. I agree 100%. Hey, C for Nick. Albert Kwan's here. Did Albert Kwan say anything funny? He's always got something funny. Okay. So Kos says, is training in Taekwondo but being a really good counter fighter make you a JKD practitioner or a great Taekwondo fighter that mastered the art of counterattacking? Well, counterattacking, Kos, is not unique to Jeet Kune Do. The idea of the stop hit, which is a counterattack, came to Bruce Lee's mind somewhat from fencing. Everybody has counterattacking. It's part of combat. So if you're a really good counter fighter in Taekwondo, guess what? That makes you a really good counter fighter in Taekwondo. Now, how would that make you a good JKD practitioner? That's ludicrous. Taekwondo is not Jeet Kune Do. There are certain things they do in Taekwondo that you don't necessarily do in JKD. One, their footwork is a little bit different. However, I'll tell you this, right? There's some footwork that they use that I spent a little bit of time in my formative years in Taekwondo and reacquainted myself with some of their footwork when I started training with Salem Asli in boxe française. Imagine that. Boxe française and Taekwondo have a little bit footwork similarity, right? But anyhow, oh wait, I was making a point when I talked about Ryan and his great book. What was my point? Yes. So I've changed my expression. Bruce Lee did not leave us with unanswered questions. Bruce Lee left us with unanswerable questions. You see? Okay. They're unanswerable because he's not around to answer them. They're not unanswered because who knows if they were asked when he was around or not. So it's not unanswered questions, it's unanswerable questions. But no, Kos, because you're a master counter fighter in Taekwondo doesn't make you a Jeet Kune Do practitioner. Not at all. Right? Magazine Retriever. And one of Paul Vunak's on, he added a number of non-Dumog JKD techniques to his curriculum. Okay, well, hey, Paul can do whatever he wants, right? The JKD concepts that I practice incorporate Savat, Sambo, and Dumog. All right, who's that? Del Mountain. The JKD concepts that I practice. Fine, cool. If you use that terminology and what have you, then that's perfect for you. Why don't these new generation guys train in other things? Mick, I don't know that we can't. I don't know that it's accurate to say to generalize about that, because I know I'm pretty sure that there are Ted Wong disciples who do train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Okay. Now, they might not be interested in training it all the way up to getting a black belt or what have you. They're not that particularly interested in it. They might be using the approach of, okay, what are the major techniques that people use on you in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? What are the major counters to those major techniques? How can I incorporate and integrate those and what have you, right? So the smart, for example, Ted Wong disciples who are interested in totality, they definitely have looked into other stuff. In fact, that was something, let me see if I can find if I can find that section, because like I said, this ended up being a huge document that, but it had to do with, and since we talked about Vunak, who, as I often say, is the guy who popularized the use of the term attribute, right, and attribute development when it comes to JKD. It's as simple as this, okay? You know how Sifu Dan gets flack for saying that only Bruce Lee could do certain things? Well, I don't think that it means only Bruce Lee could do certain things. I think it means only Bruce Lee could do certain things the way Bruce Lee did them. In other words, Bruce Lee was probably the fastest with the kick, the fastest with the punch. Doesn't mean that other people couldn't kick and punch, right? So don't misinterpret what he's saying. So let's say that you want to improve the power in your kicking, and you discover that people in Muay Thai have really powerful kicks. Well, in the interest of personal development, you could go check out some Muay Thai kicking to see what you can get from it. And then you bring it back to your JKD training. You don't have to stay in it all the way up to whatever. But of course, the more time you spend in it, probably the better you get at it, the more you understand about it. So that would be a good reason to do that, to spend more time. Don't dabble. Jump in, do a deep dive into it, and then come back out. Okay. So what if you do that for the art of kicking? What if you do that for the art of punching? What if you do that for the art of trapping? What if you do that for the art of grappling? You see? Maybe that's what Inosanto did. Hey, let's check out these things and see what we can get from them. And then we'll make use of them how we can. But along the way, there's the idea of, well, wait, this guy is really good. I should expose him if I can. If he's interested in having a side hustle, maybe I can expose him to a larger crowd, part of my crowd, right? And what we call in the marketing world joint ventures, right? But I guarantee you that in Asano, whoever he introduced and got them like a seminar career or whatever, I guarantee you there was no written agreement where he got a percentage of whatever. I doubt that very much, right? In fact, I don't know for sure, but I am 99.9% sure there was no such financial agreement or what have you, right? Anyhow, so I just wanted to bring that out because the guy that said he explored JKD concepts and he had a whole thing in the JKD blend, right? And I said, well, ultimately, that's what he was trying to show, that a Muay Thai kick or a Savate kick or a Kung Fu kick, a kick from any style, well trained, could be used as an entry technique. So if you realize that it's an entry technique, then it's just a kick. But that would take explaining, you see? And probably the only people who would be interested in that explanation would be people who really want to understand, who really want to go through the process themselves, as opposed to the people who just want it, no, just give it to me the way it is or the way it was, without understanding that the way it was, the way it is, came to be that way through experimentation, through an experimental process. So you got to engage in it as well, right? Okay. What else? Original new generation, right? I don't know anyone claiming to be teaching JKD but teaching Kali. Yeah, I don't think so either, right? Concepts themselves are a waste of time. Classical mess JKD. Classical mess. JKD should be itself the way of the truth. So So the concepts of Jeet Kune Do are a waste of time. JKD itself should be the way of the truth. So there are no concepts to Jeet Kune Do, or are they? I mean, the 5 ways of attack, is that a concept? Right? Are there guiding principles in JKD? So if somebody is whittling down to determine what the concepts of Jeet Kune Do might be, how can that be a waste of time? Oh, you're referring to the term Jeet Kune Do concepts. I see. So the term Jeet Kune Do concepts is a waste of time. Okay. But the concepts of Jeet Kune Do themselves are not a waste of time. So if somebody attempted to, dare I say, enumerate or just highlight how the guiding principles, the guiding concepts of Jeet Kune Do can be found in other arts, I don't see how that's a waste of time. But maybe you know more than I do since you've been in JKD for a really long time. Sydney Kelly, how are you? That's funny. David Hatch is definitely one of the more knowledgeable people. Yep, for sure. Why would you search out JKD, start mixing the arts? Doesn't make any sense. Why would you search out JKD? I don't even know what that means. Right, Bruce's art of simplicity and turn it into a bloody mess again, right? You know, it's just talk, just talk. It's true Bruce had left trapping behind. Okay, so once again, right? Once again, it's true that Bruce Lee left trapping behind. I've seen this happening on Facebook. The rise of the phrase latter stage Jeet Kune Do or final phase Jeet Kune Do or late stage Jeet Kune Do or late phase or whatever. So apparently Bruce Lee had Bruce Lee evolved at one point in his life, evolved to a point where it's like you couldn't even touch him. Okay. So nobody could touch him. Well, if you're untouchable, if you could just move in and hit and get out, guess what? You have no need for trapping. Okay. Now, if that gets reported, so somebody comes in. So watch this, right? So here's Bruce Lee evolving, right? On this vertical line. Okay. Now, there are people who came in, right? Met him, stayed with him, right? And evolved with him. There are other people who Bruce Lee's evolving, they come in, he keeps evolving, and they go off. See? Then there are people, this is Bruce Lee's evolution line before it gets cut off on July 20th, 1973. And they came in about here. You see? They didn't come in down here and grow with him here. No, they came in about here and spent this time. And so what they get is latter stage JKD. So they come in when Bruce Lee's at a point where it's like no need for him to touch hands with anybody, right? And blast through anybody or what have you, because he's untouchable. So they walk away thinking that's it. They don't have any understanding of what came before that. They probably don't have the imagination for what could have come after that, right? So they don't have the total idea. And now we have this guy who is latching on to what he has heard, that Bruce Lee gave up trapping or what have you, right? So even if Bruce Lee did give up trapping himself, so what that's now like what? Gospel? And so everybody is supposed to go, we're done with trapping, right? No, no. because trapping is a thing that works. Trapping is a thing that can be applied. Doesn't mean that you don't work on being as fast as you can. And if you get to the point where you yourself are untouchable, excellent, good for you, right? More power to you. But because Bruce Lee got to that point, and so he wasn't showing anybody trapping anymore. You gotta remember, there was a time when the trapping was extremely important, when the chisao was extremely important. But yes, I agree. There was a time where he may have de-emphasized it. But that doesn't mean that everybody's, oh, we only do what Bruce did. Man, you're not Bruce Lee, okay? You're not Bruce Lee. So what you do is you understand what are the areas of combat in which a person who wants to be a complete martial artist, what are the areas of combat in which that person should train? Oh, let's see. There's empty hands and there's weaponry. Well, let's ignore weaponry for the purposes of this discussion. So what is there in empty hands? Well, there's striking and there's grappling. Okay, well, what is there in striking? Well, there's punching, there's elbowing, there's kneeing, there's kicking. Okay, and then there's immobilizations and there's grappling methods. So now we know what it is that we have to train. So a guy doesn't go, well, I'm not training trapping because, well, I heard that Bruce Lee said trapping is out. But you're not Bruce Lee. You're not so fast that you're untouchable. People can still get a hold of you. People can still block when you try to hit. People are still trying to hit you because you're not so fast, right? So they're still trying to connect with you. Maybe you need to trap something. Don't be so stupid as to think Bruce said this, so this is it. No. But somebody who is on a beginner Jeet Kune journey might say something like that, right? Spend more time with fencers to be closer to the truth. That is so ridiculous. That is so ridiculous, right? The truth of Jeet Kune is not found in fencing. Because look, Kos just asked if you are a master counter fighter in Taekwondo, does that make you a good JKD practitioner? So you think if you spend more time with fencers, right, that automatically that's gonna improve your Jeet Kune? No, you'll get good ideas, right, from fencing. Yes, okay, but you want to tell me that a guy can't get good, right? A guy can't get good at explosive footwork, spending time with people who train plyometrics? Huh? Really? You're going to tell me that you can't get better at JKD footwork by training in something that will give you explosiveness, that you got to spend more time with fencers? So stupid. Ay. Okay. What did Tim say? Neither of those. I can't, man. Tim, this is a big comment. I can't read it. And it keeps blocking. I have a thing that keeps blocking here. Having someone to teach on seminar, which implies there is nothing to JKD at all. And commercialization sounds great if you have a bias, but falls apart under logical scrutiny. Exactly. Yes. Right. Okay, Tim, let's not say too much good stuff about Kurt Cornwell, okay? All right, one more time, let's deal with Mr. Nonsense. Most of Dan's students are mixed martial artists. Take a look. Most of Dan's students are mixed martial artists. What the hell? I'm not a mixed martial artist. Tim Becker is not a mixed martial artist. Cass Magda is not a mixed martial artist. Chris Kent is not a mixed martial artist. Kevin Seaman is not a mixed martial artist. I mean, what does that mean? You mean that we're cross-trained in other things? That's what makes somebody a mixed martial art. I thought mixed martial artists were people who fought in like UFC style competitions, but maybe I don't know anything. The Chisao debate is, all right, Tim, that's too big a thing. Hopefully people will read that and get it on their own. Hey, make sure, Mick Tully, using no hubud as hubud, right? Okay, JKD blend, get that, man, why does that thing show up? A term used to try to make something already understood by practitioners relatable to people who are not practitioners via a mass media, such as a DVD. Right, yes, yes. Those using that phrase, yeah. Well, I don't think, since it's been explained to them more than once, I don't think, Tim, that it's as simple as bad faith actors. I think they're just dumb, and they understand the explanation, but like was said earlier, they can't divest themselves. They're so entrenched in their belief system that they can't be open-minded. You know, it's not daily increase, it's daily decrease. Yes. Okay. So now we know that you know a couple of popular Bruce Lee quotes. Okay. So why are so many JKD teachers teaching a watered down version of JKD? Dalton Dam, I'd have to hear specifics about what it is. I don't know. I'd have to hear specifics about what it is that you consider to be a watered down version. What's a watered down version? So maybe you can send me a message on that or something. Of course, make sure they were honorable men, right? They were gentlemen, and so they did the right thing. Could someone teach themselves JKD with only reading the 6,000 pages Bruce Lee left? They could try. Craig Stanton says, if Dan were to disassociate himself from JKD as a result of the nonsense politics, I'm siding 100% with Dan, period. Listen, man, as somebody who was just there with him, I think it's safe to say, Tim backed me up on this, he is completely unflustered by the politics that I engage in every week, right? Reading about JKD makes you smart. Training and sparring in JKD makes you physically proficient. Yeah, you got to do the work. That's true, Del. Right. Adults don't listen well. Oh man. All right. Okay. I think I'm gonna take a page from Red Tiger's book and say, gotta go. Let's see. Let me just see a. JKD is based on whatever. Hey, Zane Isaacs, thanks for checking in. Yeah, exactly. Imagine thinking, because you're such a Bruce Lee and JKD fan, that because there's a JKD logo in the mix, all these other arts must be added to JKD. I mean, that's so stupid. That's so stupid. All right. Yeah. All right. Okay. We're coming up on 90 minutes, so I think we're good. Right. I'll check. Maybe not tonight, right? Because there's other people concerned about these things. And tomorrow I'm heading up to Coral Springs to American Dragon. I'm doing my monthly class up there with them. I might even add something to the Jeet Kune. I'm just kidding, right? Okay, all right. So, guys, thanks for hanging out with me, and I will sign off now. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel. Wishing you guys a great weekend. Stay safe. Talk soon. Take care.